Good evening and welcome to tonight's Tuesday, January 20th City Council meeting for 2026. I'd first await a motion to leave the non-public session and to seal the minutes of that non-public session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Kelly, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Mayor McCachran,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly,
Here.
Councilor Cook,
Here.
Councilor Tabor,
Here.
Councilor Blaylock,
Present.
Councilor Badley,
Here.
Councilor Moreau,
Here.
Councilor Flynn,
Here.
Councilor Hopkins.
Here.
And before the Pledge of Allegiance, I just wanted to thank the Seacoast NAACP for once again celebrating Martin Luther King Day at the South Church. It was great to be surrounded by a community speaking to, I guess, the best parts of our humanity, finding it in one another, and to carry that energy not into our government lives, but into our personal lives as we seek to make a more perfect union. And in that, I see a number of children in the audience this evening. If you are so comfortable as to come up here to the center to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, would really like the help on this one.
I think you're gonna have to go down and cover some. Great job, guys. We have a proclamation that I've asked Councilor Cook to read on Stalking Awareness Month, and I want to thank Gene Reed and Ryan Grogan of the prosecution unit here to accept this, and Councilor Cook for reading it.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I asked the mayor if I could read this because I was twice the victim of stalking, so I think this is a very important proclamation tonight. Whereas January was declared National Stalking Awareness Month in 2011 because the continuing prevalence of stalking in every community and its effect on all people regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, or nationality. And whereas January was declared National Stalking Awareness Month in 2011 because the continuing prevalence, it's twice, whereas 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 6 men are victims of stalking in their lifetimes, and whereas an estimated 13.5 million people are stalked in a one-year period in the United States, and a majority of these stalking cases are perpetrated by someone the victim knows. And whereas stalking has long-lasting negative impacts that can upend the lives of victims and their families, forcing them to make tough decisions, including changing jobs, relocating homes, or even hiding their addresses through state-offered programs to protect themselves and their families. And whereas here in Portsmouth, since 2015, when a safe place and sexual assault support services officially merged in a single nonprofit, that organization, Haven, has provided support services and prevention education to those impacted by stalking, domestic violence, and sexual violence. And whereas the City of Portsmouth has employed a victim witness advocate since 1999 with funding from the Violence Against Women Act to work with the Portsmouth Police Department and the City Legal Department's prosecutors to support victims of stalking. And whereas the city reminds everyone that confidential local help is available 24 hours a day at the Haven Violence Prevention and Support Hotline, that's 603-994-SAFE. And whereas the City of Portsmouth stands with all New Hampshire prosecutors and law enforcement as sentries on the front lines advocating on behalf of the victims of stalking. And now, therefore, I, Kate Cook, on behalf of Daglin McEachern, the mayor of the City of Portsmouth, and on behalf of the members of the City Council and the citizens of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim January 2026 in Portsmouth as Stalking Awareness Month, and call on our citizens to come together to reaffirm our commitment to ending stalking and supporting survivors.
Thank you, Councilor Cook. Would you like to, okay, yeah.
We have no minutes for this evening. It's because it's our first meeting, I guess, so that's great. So we're on to recognitions and voluntary committee reports. So we have two, and then I'm going to make a motion to pull up the audit committee's presentation to directly before public comment in case anybody wants to hear that before public comment. But first, we have the Holiday Lights contest, and super excited that we have so many people in attendance for this. And just a reminder, this started or restarted again during the first winter of COVID, where Mayor Beckstead encouraged the citywide neighborhood committee to revive the Holiday Lights decorating contest to help brighten our collective spirits. Now the Holiday Lights contest has joined the holiday tree in Market Square to spread the joy of the season throughout our neighborhoods, giving us all a reason to smile as we drive through the night. Today, I want to thank all of the participants in the contest and the Citywide Neighborhood Committee for championing this festive tradition year after year. And I want to give a special shout out to the judges who had such a difficult challenge in making their selections that we have for the first time ever a tie for runners-up in the traditional category. And with no further ado, we want to make first the presentations to the 4 honorable mention and then the 3 first choice winners. So first, although this person is not here, as an honorable mention in the Kids' Choice category is the Goldstein family at 170 FW Hartford Drive. Give them a round of applause. You're going to hear a theme in terms of the Woodlands here. I was assured that the judges did go all throughout Portsmouth and not just do a loop there, but you guys do a fantastic job. In the creative category, the honorable mention is the Bladina family at 3 Sandering Way. The Bladina family are here? All right. Okay, so you get a present under here. So come on up.
The door stops.
What's that?
There should be names under them,
Oh,
I think.
it's the bag, right?
Oh.
With the doorstop?
That's for the grand prize.
That's for the grand prize. So we have no winners here. There's nothing.
The doors. Oh.
This is it. All right.
I'm sorry.
Hopefully it is. And if not,
Aw.
thank you so much. Can you take a picture? You guys feel that? Thank you, guys. In the traditional category, in a tie for honorable mention, we have Chris Polizzato of 660 Middle Street and Donna Figuer at 114 Cabot Street. I don't believe either is in attendance this evening, but let's give them a round of applause to make sure they're here. All right. Now for our first place awards for the Kids' Choice. And this is not their first rodeo here, but Matt and Nicole Byer of 580 FW Hartford Drive.
Good job. Neighbor.
I didn't vote, they are my neighbor.
So this, again, we don't have keys to the city, but we have door stops to go through the door. For the creative category, the winners are Kathy LaFata and Liz Rutman at 520 FW Hartford Drive.
It is. Very suspicious.
And finally, in the traditional category, the winners are the Manjanos of 752 South Street.
Good job.
Guys.
Knows what she wants.
I want to thank again just the Citywide Neighborhood Committee and Colleen for all the work that went in to this, and obviously the families that won and also participated. When this was started or restarted again, it was just a sense of community and pride and a small thing that you can do to decorate, but shows what it means to be a community. So I thank you guys for taking it as seriously as you did. It means a lot when you're driving. And as we saw in the Woodlands, it's a little infectious. When some folks start doing it, it kind of pushes us to do it more. So I really want to thank you and thank you for being here. It's always great to have kids in City Hall showing what we're doing all the work for, and that's always you guys. So once again, thanks to all the winners, the Citywide Neighborhood Committee, and for everybody that got a little bit in the holiday spirit. So thanks.
You do not have to stay.
You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. If you have bedtimes, that's totally, you can cut out now. We do have the Portsmouth High School award-winning art students next, and so I don't know if I see any of them here. They are likely studying, but they recently participated in a National Scholastic Arts Award program, which builds itself as the nation's longest running since 1923, so that's doing the math, a little over 100 years, and most prestigious recognition program for creative teams. It strikes me that 1923 is also the year we declared Portsmouth to be the city of the open door, and certainly we know that the arts help us keep that door open. 33 Portsmouth High School students took home 40 awards.
Wow.
6 gold key works, 18 silver key works, and 16 honorable mentions. They submitted impressive and original artworks in a multitude of media: ceramics and glass, sculpture, photography, prints, painting, drawings, and mixed media. Their award-winning artworks are posted in a slideshow on the city website. The link is prominently displayed on our homepage. Getting the thumbs up that it's a prominent display. I encourage you to check it out and help me in congratulating the talented artists. And so I'm going to read through the names. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. I didn't realize how hard my teachers had it with me until I had to read other people's names It's not my intention. I practice, so if that's consoling or not, I hope it is. But we will list off first the Gold Key Award winners. And I'm going to note if they've won additional awards as well. So Boston Brindamore, Gold Key Award winner, also won a silver and 2 honorable mentions. Grace Ward, Isabel Spiculi also won a silver award. Lila Feinstein Wasserman won a Gold Key and also a silver award. Madeline Vogel and Sophia Serrano all won gold awards. Round of applause for them. And then for the Silver Key Awards, we have Ada Milne, Ash Lohr, Cooper Ferragamo, Dana Turbano, Eleanor Purcell, Eloise Patrick, Finn Turner, Gloria Chow, who won 2 silver awards, Malia Dunn-Bolanos, Navisha Patel, Sage Bosiar, Samara Brochu, Shay McGrath, and Tessa Hallway. So a round of applause for all the silver. And then the honorable mentions: Amelia Murphy, Anna DeTrolio, Ava Surmuki Suvana, Emma Weiland, Izzy Lewis, Jamie Robalino Pia, Jasmine Parker, Leanna Corey, Maggie Callahan, Mars Panic, who won 2, Parker Wintenbert, Reagan McDonald, and Sophia Layfield. A round of applause to all of our winners. And I won't embarrass her because what could be worse than embarrassing a, well, because it would accidentally embarrass her daughter, who's a senior. But it was, somebody reached out saying, I see that you celebrate a lot of team members that come in here in sports teams. Would you consider recognizing some of our student artists? And that's a resounding yes. Mm-hmm. Anytime there's an opportunity to celebrate our kids' accomplishments, to put them at the center of what we do as a council, and to recognize not only the fruits of their labor, but the hard work that went in to celebrate them, is to encourage others. And so hopefully, if you're watching at home or on YouTube, and I read your name close to correct, you're excited. But hopefully those others that are looking towards the arts and are inspired by your awards will continue to put in the work to be here next year. We really thank you for embodying everything that it is to be from Portsmouth, and that's really competitive, intelligent, invest in the arts, and invest in the community. So thank you very much. And now we don't have, we haven't reformed the audit committee yet, because we will do so today. But I would first ask to suspend the rules and to bring up 13.1, the, went past it, got to go back. Under presentations and written communications, the fiscal year 2025 audit summary. We have our CLA members, and I believe we have Matthew Hunt on Zoom, and we have Phil Wang in person, and we have Nathan as always.
Your Honor, I second the motion.
I
make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Long 2 years.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. It's a real pleasure. To the new council members, let me just offer 30 seconds to tell you at your seat at the dais tonight a copy of the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for Fiscal 25, completed last June 30th of 2025. The PAFR, the Popular Annual Financial Report for the same period. When you have a chance to look back for some great reason in your new role, you will see that the budget looks the same, as does the capital improvement plan for the same fiscal 25. They all match. We do that to try to make it easy for me so that I don't lose myself. They are with you now. They are also on the website. You can go to the city's website, the Finance Department, and you'll find it there appropriately at the, right underneath FY25, because these are the summary documents for fiscal '25. As the mayor has already announced, Matt Hunt, the signing director, is joining us from Zoom, and I believe will lead the presentation, and Phil Huang, our manager, who is with us routinely through the summer months and into the fall, actually through the fall. He lets us prep stuff in the summer. He's here as well, and they'll first present, and then we'll honor any questions that you might have. It was a successful year, and we're really pleased to have them, their third year of engagement with the city.
Nathan?
Welcome, Matt and Phil.
Hello, and thank you, Nathan, for the introduction, and thank you for the council for having us here. I apologize that I'm unable to be there in person, but Phil is there, and if there's any really difficult questions, you can direct them towards Phil. If there's any easy questions, you can direct them to me. So I assume somebody's taking control. I'm glad I don't have to share screen. I'm not very technologically advanced, so I'm glad somebody's doing it for me. So whoever is the nice individual that's advancing the slides, you can advance the slide to the next one. So our agenda here tonight is to go over the terms of the engagement, really sort of just a summary of what the audit objectives are for our annual audit. Then we'll give an executive summary based on those audit objectives. Also give you a couple of financial highlights. Obviously, it's a very large financial statement. I'm sure everybody's read it cover to cover, but we'll give you some of the highlights. We'll also talk about the management letter report and some other required communications, and then open it up for any questions. Next slide. All right, so in terms of, it relates to terms of engagement or audit objectives, there's really three key objectives related to the financial statement audit that we conducted for FY25. The first being that we have to express an opinion on the financial statements as to whether or not they're presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also provide a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants as it relates to your financial statements. And then there's other required communications to management and governance. If there's any significant findings that we would have come across, we would have to report those as well. So if we advance to the next slide in terms of an overall summary as it relates to those objectives that I just talked about, happy to report that the city's financial statements contain what is referred to as an unmodified opinion. That is the best opinion that you can receive in a financial statement audit. And what it essentially means is that during the course of our audit procedures, we did not identify any material misstatements to the city's financial statements. Also, as it relates to your financial statements, we did not come across any internal control findings that we would deem to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We do have a management letter, but that's not considered a financial statement finding. That's really more of a best practice type recommendations, and also no compliance issues as well. And then in terms of any other sort of significant issues that we would have come across in the audit, we're happy to report that there were none. Next slide. So again, it's a very large report. There's a lot of financial data in there. So what I try to do with this presentation, I know the city has a lot on their agenda tonight, just try to condense it down to some of the things that we feel are the most impactful in terms of financial highlights. So first things first, your general fund, that's where your bond rating agencies are going to go and take a look at your general fund. So we want to give you some highlights here. You see there's some comparisons between FY25 and FY24. All across the board, good news. Unassigned fund balance, which is essentially fund balance that is in no way restricted or committed for certain purposes. It's just unfettered. You did experience an increase there. Also experienced a small increase in your overall fund balance during the year. And in terms of percentages, we always like to point out your percentage of unassigned fund balance as it relates to your total budget, that percentage consistent with the previous year. And then in terms of your total general fund balance as a percentage of budget, just a slight decrease from 24 to 25. Next slide relates to long-term liabilities. There's really, is the case with most municipalities, there's usually three larger long-term liabilities that we always like to point out. First of all, long-term debt. The city has long-term debt outstanding at the end of June 30, 2025 of about $303 million. That's a slight increase from the previous year based on new debt issuances that the city had compared to what was retired during the year. Your pension liability related to the New Hampshire retirement system did experience a slight decrease from 110 million to 105 million. That liability, it can fluctuate from year to year, but it should slowly start to whittle down as the retirement system becomes fully funded. And then your OPEB liability, just a slight increase from 16.7 million to about 17.2 million. So again, these are significant liabilities, but the city's doing a good job of managing them. Last couple of highlights, just want to give you some numbers related to your enterprise funds, your water enterprise fund, in terms of its long-term debt liabilities, similar to the overall city liabilities for long-term debt, just a slight increase. Your pension liability remained pretty much level at about 2.8 million. Same thing with your OPEB liability, fairly level compared to the previous year, approximately 236,000. Did experience an overall positive net change in your net position for the Water Enterprise Fund of about $2 million, leaving you with an ending net position of a little over 66 million. And then lastly, in terms of financial highlights on the next slide, similar sort of results with your Sewer Enterprise Fund. Again, slight increases in your slight increase in your long-term debt liability, pension liability, small decrease to 3.2 million. OPEB liability fairly level at 230,000, and similar to your Water Enterprise Fund, did experience an overall positive change in net position of a little over 800 grand, leaving you with net position of approximately 113 million. So really, in terms of your financial highlights, really all good things. Your general fund balance is at a healthy level. Same thing with your water and sewer enterprise net positions as well. And again, those long-term liabilities, while they are significant, the city is doing a good job of managing them. So next topic on the list is your management letter. And again, these aren't considered to be anything that's reported in the manager letter is not a significant deficiency or material weakness in controls. It's usually more geared towards best practice recommendations, ways that you can make slight improvements. You'll see that in your manager letter, we do have one comment with several different recommendations related to information technology. That's one of the sort of the value adds that we like to bring to the audit, is that our firm has information technology specialists that we like to put on the city's audit to do a deeper dive into your information technology and use of IT as it relates to your financial reporting. It's not a full-blown IT audit, but usually we are able to come up with some pretty good recommendations for improvement. So just sort of giving a basic summary, you'll see in the manager letter, you can obviously take a read through it, but just a brief summary of some of the recommendations. In terms of policies, there is commonly with an IT department, you have what is referred to as an acceptable use policy. What we identified is that had not been reviewed or updated during the period under audit. So again, best practice recommendation is whenever it comes to policies, because the IT environment is constantly changing, it's always a good idea to do an annual, at least, review of all your policies and update those. When it comes to your IT risk assessment, that was performed, but again, with audits, it always comes down to documentation. The date of that IT risk assessment wasn't necessarily documented, so just want to make sure that when you do these IT risk assessments on an annual basis, that you date those risk assessments just to document that they were done annually. Similarly, in the area of documenting, the city has robust backup and recovery processes as it relates to your financial data, but in terms of an actual formal policy, we identified that there was no formal written policy. So again, always a good idea to have written policies and procedures in case there's employee turnover in the IT department. It's always good to have a robust set of written policies and procedures. And then lastly, we took a look at one of the applications that's used by the school department and identified that there were up to 25 individuals who had system administrator privileges. Generally speaking, when you're talking about system administrators and the various privileges that come with that, you want to sort of keep that to only those individuals that need those privileges. So the recommendation here is just take a look at those individuals and sort of pare down that list to those who really need those particular privileges. Next slide.
Matt, before we move on to the next slide, I just want to mention that the management response to these recommendations suggest and indicate that the city will have resolved all of these issues by the end of this current fiscal year. Thanks.
And I'll also jump in and say on that point as well, the city's done a great job. I think we've had IT recommendations the past couple of years as well. Every year, those recommendations get implemented. But again, with a fresh set of eyes and with things always changing, new things are going to come up every year. But the city has done a great job of implementing the recommendations that we've offered in the mansion letter. With that said, next couple of slides, and we'll open up to any questions. In terms of other communications that we want to provide here tonight to the council, when it comes to significant accounting policies, city's management is responsible for their accounting policies, and those can be described. Those are described in note 1 of the financial statements if you want some light reading. We did not identify any transactions that lacked authoritative guidance. We also find that the city's footnote disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We did not identify anything that we would deem to be significant or unusual transactions during FY25. Next slide. In terms of disagreements with management, we did not have any. We are not aware of any city management consultations with other independent accountants. And in terms of any issues discussed with management prior to the engagement, they're all within the normal course of our professional relationship. So with that said, again, overall, the city's in very good financial condition. Credit to Nathan Lunny and to Mike Tucker and the rest of the finance and accounting team for the great job that they do. So overall, a clean audit, a good audit, and we want to thank everybody from the city that helped us with the process. Happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions? Councilor Bagley, or any questions? Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thanks for the presentation on the audit. This might be more a question for Nathan. The OPEB liabilities, why the smallest of the long-term liabilities, with the recent trends we're seeing in health insurance, do we expect that to affect next year's OPEB numbers as well?
I'm in great company here, so if Phil has a better answer, I'll defer. But that OPEB liability speaks to what the system calls an implied rate subsidy. It is all a calculation, an actuarial calculation of the increase that we see in our rates because our retiree population, at least some of them, are blended with us. Although they're paying 100% of their premiums, those retirees that are under 65 and not yet in alternative plans with Medicare and supplements, those folks are rated with us, and as a result, there is an implied increase in the rates we pay for actives, because rated separately, the actives might be a little lower and the retirees might be a little higher. The actuaries tease that out over the long run, and so in answer to your question, yes, as our rates rise in general, so too does the value of that implied rate subsidy, and so I think it's reasonable to assume that you might see not enormous, but measured and what do I want to say, proportionate increases over time. Is that fair?
You think you answered that very.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Tabor, then Councilor Blaylock.
I just wanted to thank you guys. One of the reasons we, in the audit committee, decided to go with CLA 3 years ago was your IT experience, and it's great to see these areas we can improve and see us take those to heart and make those improvements. And it's also nice to see that fund balance, unassigned fund balance, has stayed at the healthy 13.7% of the budget, which is where we always want it.
Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify and make sure the people at home know what OPEB, what's the acronym that it's standing for?
That stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, there are two liabilities there that are discussed. One is the OPEB that we just discussed. The other is retirement. Those are very real, and they sit on our balance sheet. They're in our financials, but they are not dollars that you could go borrow and pay off. They simply represent relationships. I argue with the auditors every year, ask them if there isn't some grace that they have found where we can stop showing those, because they are meaningful numbers of significance, but they are representative of the unfunded nature of the New Hampshire retirement system right now. They're not really anything that we could address alternatively. We simply record them. So they're important information, but they're something we're, I hate to say, strapped with. So.
Yep, thank you.
Well, again, thank you for the work, the culmination of this. I understand that you'll be available if questions arise through Nathan as we digest this. Also, just, useful as folks look through this at home, the process of creating the budget and the efficiencies that we find in the budget is a part of all the work that we do here on the council. The audit is making sure that the money that we appropriate is spent in a way that is accountable and follows the best practices of general finance and accounting rules. So just want to make sure that, the audit is a separate process from the budget, tied and related, but, it's the requirement of the council to make sure that we go put a good budget together using this information where we can, but appreciate the work that staff and CLA have done to make sure that what we say we're spending the money on is what we're spending it on, and everything is aligned from that standpoint. So appreciate everybody and the work that went into this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Phil and Matt.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to public comment. I have one sign up here, Peter Somsich, on the topic of solar energy. And then there is one at home that once we get through this, we will go to Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. Peter Somsich, 34 Sweat Avenue. And I'm not going to be around for later on, but I would just want to make one comment about the upcoming changes for the ordinance 025 regarding the sustainability objectives of the city. And I am very encouraged and completely in support of the changes that are, I assume the Sustainability Committee had a lot to do with that, where they included in this objective, the ordinance, that we should support, we should promote the use of alternative energy sources such as solar and wind. And the only comment I have really is to say I wholeheartedly support this, but what I would ask is if it's possible to also include a couple additional words to say we protect already installed solar installations in this city. Because if we just support new ones, but we see old ones being threatened by development or whatever, taking away energy that we already have, I think that's not in the spirit of this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Nobody else rising for public comment here. I will go to Zoom, and I have
It's Margot Doring.
Margot Doring. Margot, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me a time to speak. I'm Margot Doring. I live at 300 Jones Avenue. I see that a motion will be made this evening to request a report from the Planning and Sustainability staff on, and I quote, how to remove new construction from Historic District Commission purview. Since that purview is granted by ordinance and the council knows exactly how to amend an ordinance, I can only conclude that the councilor is actually looking for something else from the planning staff. I would ask that the councilor explain exactly what is behind this motion when introducing it. Ordinances are usually amended to correct a problem, to advance an initiative, or bring an old rule into line with changing times. My questions are, what is the removal of the purview over new construction intended to achieve? What problem is it supposed to solve? How will that benefit the public? For example, sometime in the near future, the back portion of the McIntyre property is likely to be redeveloped. Without HDC purview over new construction, how will the public have a forum for design input into this large development in the heart of downtown? If the developer meets all the requirements of other standard planning ordinances, heights and setbacks, for example, is it not conceivable that a cinder block and steel structure could legally be constructed in that location. If the City Council decides to move forward with this concept, I would hope that, first, the staff would be given clear direction as to the purpose and goals behind this requested report. Second, the staff be tasked with giving equal consideration to the potential ramifications as well as any looked-for benefits. And third, the staff discuss the concept with the HDC to include the Commission's thoughts and concerns in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margot. Seeing no other speakers, I will, it's not a public hearing, so we don't have to do anything. We will move on to our public hearings and vote on ordinances and resolutions. The first reading of ordinance. First reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10 zoning ordinance, Article 5, dimensional and intensity standards, Section 10.515.14, power generators, Chapter 15, definitions, Section 10.1530, terms of general applicability, amending building coverage, mechanical system, power generation, and structure.
Your Honor, I move to pass the first reading and schedule a public hearing. And schedule second reading for the February 17th, 2026 council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Morel.
Just in case anyone's wondering what this is all about, is this, we just realized there are some inconsistencies in our zoning after we made the change last term, and therefore trying to clean it up and make sure that we account for the full intent of our changes in the last period. So this is one of many things that the planning board addressed this past fall that are just now finally coming forward.
That's right. We got a nice email from Tom Nyes on the intent of what we tried or what we did and where it left loopholes. And so look forward to getting more feedback and public comment on that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next, a first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10, zoning ordinance, Article 1, purpose and applicability, Section 10.122, Section 1, sustainability objectives or objections. Should this be objectives or objections?
Objectives.
Objectives, sustainability objectives. Article 4, zoning and use regulation, Section 10.440, amending table of use for ground-mounted solar energy systems. Article 8, supplemental use standards, Section 10.811, amending accessory uses to permitted residential uses. And Chapter 15, definitions, Section 10.150, terms of general applicability, amending solar energy systems and structure.
Your Honor, I'd move to pass first reading and schedule public hearing and second reading for the February 17th council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Moreau.
This is actually something that had been brought forward by former Councilor Denton, and it took us a while to get through it at the planning board level. We actually waited for our newest member that joined us because he actually works in this industry, and we really wanted to get his feedback, especially the freestanding solar and the sizes and the setbacks in, so that we could make sure it would all make sense. So I'm sorry that this took some time, but it is finally here, and I hope to get your feedback on it.
Excellent. This has taken a little bit.
Has.
Yeah, all right.
But we're finally there.
Couple of years, it's all in the past, it's here now, on the desk. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I just wanted to thank Councilor Moreau and the planning board for getting this back to us. We have been waiting for several years, and I've been part of several of those discussions trying to make sure that we were bringing it forward. So I really do thank you for putting in the work, and thank you to the planning board for getting this back to us.
Thanks, Councilor Cook. Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to thank the planning board. I want to thank Councilor Denton. I'm a big supporter of solar energy. I think we could always do better, but I think this goes a long way in supporting solar energy in Portsmouth.
Councilor Moreau.
Just based off of the speaker that spoke during public comment, I think that we could take a look at the general purpose of it and add including protecting existing alternative energy uses, but I would leave it to staff if they would like to take a look at that and see if expanding on the objective would fit into what is written there. That's all.
So a note then, is that we'll go to Councilor Cook if there's a motion here. I don't know if we need a motion.
I don't know if there's
but
enough support for it, but I thought I'd bring it up.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I actually was going to offer a slight amendment, so I would move to change objections to objectives in the second line, sustainability objectives, 1. And if I get a second?
Second.
I don't think that this is a substantial change, so I don't think it should impact anything, but we should probably just make sure that word is correct.
And anything in terms of promoting the preservation of, I don't know how this would be for I understand the use, and I think collectively we're aligned with that use of preserving. It's difficult to see how, since this would be governing a new structure and not the, where demolition might be preserved, you know, it might be better preserved in a separate ordinance, or.
I just thought we should at least discuss it.
Certainly, and it could be, you know, taken into account under city council goals and initiatives, but I don't know how we would import into the new construction. Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think in light of the time that it's taken to get to here, I'd be supportive of passing what we have in front of us, and then if we want to make amendments down the road, doing that at a later date.
Okay.
It can be fixed. It can be fixed for second reading.
The objectives.
Yes.
Objectives
We're
can
talking
certainly,
beyond that.
yeah, we'll take that, we'll just we'll vote on changing objections to objectives. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would say under section 10.122, item 1, I would move to amend the first section to say promote and preserve the use. So just add the words and preserve use of alternative energy sources such as solar and wind. And if I get a second?
Second.
I'm not sure whether or not this is a substantive enough change to alter second reading, but I think that would handle this concern around preservation.
Well, certainly promote means both to preserve and promote, but if we can, if it's belt and suspenders and we can clarify the ordinance in a way that we are looking for both solar to stay and solar to be created, along with other alternative energy sources. City Attorney, what say you, if that's a substantial change?
I don't believe so, no.
Do not believe so. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to add and preserve, and there's a second?
Mm-hmm.
Who second? You did, Assistant Mayor? All right. That is all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, as amended, we have the motion to pass first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're on to, and thank you for the speaker for bringing that up, and again, for the work of the planning board, and for former Councilor Denton, who, and Councilor Cook, who remained on the council to see this through, but for the work that has gone into it. And I know many residents have asked for this to be a priority, and so I appreciate that it has made it through. Now up, first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10, zoning ordinance, Article 8, supplemental use standards, Section 10.814, accessory dwelling units, amending ordinance to comply with state law, and amendments to Chapter 4, zoning and use regulations, Section 10.440, amending table of uses for accessory dwelling units.
I move to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading at the February 17th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Moreau and then Councilor Bagley.
Just to reiterate, this is just taking our existing zoning and making it comply with the newest state legislation that has come out regarding ADUs. So it's out of our hands. We just need to comply.
Do you, would you mind going into some of those details on the compliance?
You're allowed by right now to do an attached or a detached as long as you fit within the zoning of 750 square feet. And there is some lot coverage, there's some minimal requirements, but we can't, there's no interior door anymore required, and there's no more administrative approval. There's a lot of things that are taken out. It's truly, you're allowed to do ADUs by right.
Okay. Could you speak to how it affects the handbook that we delivered for the city of Portsmouth about a year and a half ago?
Not directly at this moment in time. Had you asked me, I would have tried to prepare that, but you're asking me to take this off the top of my
Okay,
head.
so I guess maybe for second reading, because
Yeah,
the handbook,
I can be prepared for that next time. I'm not prepared for that at this moment.
as many have noted when they've gone through the handbook to understand how to do that, they've recognized, just the time and money that they've saved with that guidance. And so if there's changes that will directly impact, make it worse, make it easier, would love to be able to note that in the second reading as we pass it.
I would be happy to do that.
Excellent. It doesn't have to be a presentation, but it would be helpful to know some of
Recommendations.
those differences. Counselor Bagley?
Thank you, Your Honor. So in the notes, it says the new law provides flexibility related to the size of an ADU to allow for maximum square footage of 950 square feet or more if authorized by the local ordinance. A municipality cannot limit the size of an ADU to 750 square feet. Less than. The planning board recommends keeping the current maximum size at 750 square feet for any ADU. What was the reasoning on not going with the standard 950?
I think because our current one was 750, and that's really been a really good size. People have come with less. They just don't have the square footage to do less. And we thought, especially with all of this being allowed by right, let's see how it plays out before we expand and make it even larger than we have to.
Okay.
All good points to bring to, so I guess for folks watching at home, state laws came. Being able to have the discussion on the state law is when we will have the public hearing on that. This is putting forth the staff and planning recommendation as it stands right now. And from there, can be amended, but would take more time at second reading. Any motions?
I made the motion.
Sorry, any amendments? You got me back for asking for a report without asking in advance. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up, first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10, zoning ordinance, Article 2, Site Development Standards, Section 10.1112.311, off-street parking, dwelling unit floor area, required parking spaces.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule public hearing and second reading for the February 17th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second?
Any discussion? Councilor Moreau?
This, once again, is just adjusting our current requirements to what is now required by state. We're not allowed to require more than one parking space. So we basically just have it less than 500 square feet and over 500 square feet, and there's no more additional for being larger than 750 square feet.
Thank you, Councilor Moreau. Is there, how does this align to some of the questions that we placed in terms of the parking requirements to the planning board at the end of last term? Is this aligned with that?
Well,
go ahead, Assistant Mayor.
Well, I was just thinking that we asked to remove it completely.
Right. We're working. It's in progress. It's not here yet, but we're working to actually move parking altogether for 3 units and above out of our zoning ordinance and into site plan review. So, but for the moment, this will have to stay because single-family homes and duplexes will still be by ordinance. So
got it. Super helpful.
Which is not unwarranted.
But it does ease the requirement. There was a
Yes.
1.3 parking spaces
needed
for every dwelling unit above 750
above
square feet.
750. That goes away.
That goes away. Yep. Now it's 1.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're on to the city manager's items which require action.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first three can be grouped together in some form or fashion. They will all be, with your approval tonight, they will all come forward for a public hearing at the February 17th council meeting. And I should mention that there aren't enough clear calendar days to bring this to the February 2nd meeting, as is the case with all the first readings. So there'll be a very busy February 17th council meeting. So the first of three related to tax credits and considering property taxes relates to service-connected total disability. And during the most recent legislative session, the General Court passed and the governor signed into law House Bill 99, which changes the maximum amount of the optional tax credits for those veterans receiving the service-connected total disability tax credit. So Roseanne Lentz, our assessor, will present at the public hearing not only on this, but on the items 2 and 3, and I'm happy to take them separately because I think they should be voted on separately. But to continue the thought about the optional tax credit for service-connected total disability, the maximum amount of the optional tax credit was increased to $5,000 and may be adopted by cities and towns to ensure no loss in total credits will be felt by these veterans due to the changes in the law. And we currently have approximately 50 veterans taking advantage of this tax credit. So again, at the February 17th meeting, you'll be asked to consider one of three options: to do nothing, or to amend it to $4,750, or to amend it to the new maximum amount of $5,000. I will stop there if there are any questions.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing at the February 17th, 2026 City Council meeting.
I second that.
Any further discussion? So the goal then of this is to make sure that we put it on for a public hearing so that we can have the presentation of the options. Councilor Flynn.
Your Honor, I'm curious, because these are affect a specific sort of portion of the demographic, is there work done to ensure that we're engaging, like in an effort to be transparent and bring people in for public comment? Is there anything outside of normal business to alert people? Like, are we connecting with the senior center to ensure that people are knowing there's a public hearing happening? Because this is the thing that people are approaching me at Market Basket about.
Yes.
You know,
I can say that historically Roseanne has spent time holding workshops to this very topic at the Senior Activity Center. For sure.
Thank you.
She looks forward to doing that, I know that.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Good question. I'm just thinking if there's other opportunities to engage with some of our veterans organizations within the city to be able to engage on that.
Without Councilor Denton.
Or Councilor
we
Lombardi,
lost
who
our two
did a
veterans.
lot of work on that. I will take it as an action to reach out to those and deliver the message of the public hearing and make sure that they're aware of this potential change and what we are looking to do for that. Councilor Morel?
One of the ways you might be able to do it is to reach out to the Elks, because they deal so much in the veterans
Elise
organizations.
does a fantastic job.
They would be able to get the word out to the veteran community.
So nothing to be decided at this point, other than to select or to set the public hearing. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next,
Item number 2 is along those same lines, Your Honor. It is a request for a public hearing at the February 17th City Council meeting regarding disabled exemptions. And last year, the City Council adopted a resolution which increased the income level for qualifying disabled. The amounts are in your packet and they're online. And again, as was the case with the previous item, there would be 3 potential options. You could consider a 2026 increase at the rate of the Social Security increase of 2.8, the 10-year rolling average of the Consumer Price Index of 2.77, or to leave the amount the same. So we look forward to that discussion.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing at the February 17th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. The last of these three would be a request for a public hearing regarding the elderly exemption. The amounts for last year are in your packet. Again, the same three potential options would be available for the council to consider. There are two different increases or to leave the exemptions the same.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing at the February 17th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 4 is a request for access easements for water services for property located at 0 Banfield Road. At the October 16th Planning Board meeting, the board granted a wetlands conditional use permit, preliminary and final subdivision approval, and site plan approval to subdivide one large lot into 5 new residential lots with associated site improvements. And as part of that site plan approval, the planning board recommended that the council accept access easements for water services over these 5 new parcels, which are to be created as part of the subdivision. These easements will permit city staff to access the properties for the purpose of leak detection and to turn valves on and off in case of an emergency.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to accept and record an access easement for water services from Chinburg Development LLC.
Second?
Any further discussion? Councilor Flynn?
Your Honor, thank you. Are these set in perpetuity, these easements? Like, is it something that once they're...
Runs with the land.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Good question. Yeah, so we get a number of easements across, and typically it's conveying a property right. Sometimes we forget about these through the course of time, not us, but many, many years before forgets about these. But it's to make sure that we record the access granted as a right to that property. And so in times, we will find that some of those easements, either through confusion with the state or just we're a 400-year-old city, so a lack of clarity. When we come across easements, it's been our focus as a city to clarify the property rights behind those, so future councils will be clear in terms of, or future citizens, et cetera, property owners will be clear of what those rights are. And so sometimes they're conveyed as a part of a project, but sometimes they're conveyed when we discovered that they have gone unconveyed before. A great question. A lot of folks certainly have no idea what an easement is if they didn't have to do it. And certainly when it comes to the city, why would we ever be getting easements? A lot of times it's because it's for sewer pipes that, and water that's going through would create a trespass if not for an easement that's been recorded.
Yeah, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Your Honor, the last item under my name is a request for a drainage easement for 333 Borthwick Avenue, the Portsmouth Regional Hospital property. Back on March 20th, 2024, the Planning Board granted a wetlands conditional use permit to HCA Health Services of New Hampshire, the property owner, for the removal of 3 existing culverts and replacement with a box culvert at the site. And as part of that approval, the Planning Board recommended the council accept an easement granting the city the right, but not the obligation, this is slightly different, to maintain the stormwater channel on the property along with the associated drainage improvements. We have noted that historically drainage has presented challenges for the city, and to ensure a successful flow in this area, the easement will permit the city to maintain this channel in the event the property owner fails to do so. And if we do step in, we will be reimbursed for our efforts. And the area covered by the easement is reflected on the drawing prepared by our public works staff.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to accept and record an access easement for water services from HCA Health Services of New Hampshire in a substantially similar form to the easement deed contained in the agenda packet.
I second that.
Any questions? Is the rate, I guess, defined or will simply be passed on of performance of services if we need to step in?
Correct.
Great. So it would just be passed through?
Yes.
Okay. Trevor was getting ready, but pass through seems like it's the understanding. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are on to the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
Councilor Cook.
Your Honor, I would like to either ask questions on item 12A or ask to remove it from the consent agenda. What would be the preference of the legal counsel? Can I ask the questions without removing it? It's no action. I'm not asking for action.
I think we can just ask the questions.
Yeah,
We'll save
very good.
ourselves a vote.
Great. So I'm wondering what the notification looks like for Eversource when they're removing poles or replacing poles. I have recent experience with a pole replacement on my street, and so I'm curious about notification requirements.
I think that generally goes through DPW. I see Peter and
Oh,
Trevor.
who's jumping up? Peter?
Come on, one of them.
Peter's,
I think
Together.
you're the short straw.
I'm sorry, the question was, what kind of notification do we receive prior to them doing this work?
Or what kind of notification do they have to provide to residents and abutters of the pole change?
Typically, what happens is they work with the city, they reach out to us, and we work to make sure we don't place poles in locations that are objectionable. So that is the process that we've gone through for, ever since I've been here. So the notification, it's oftentimes it's driven by projects, it's driven by things that are, you know, it's really not an option to, yes, we can move it a foot here, a foot there, but oftentimes it's just, it has to go in this location. So the notification process is one really, if we see that it's going to be blocking in some place space, we will work with the residents and we'll make sure those things, you know, aren't objectionable. Oftentimes it's business entrances and things like that are most objectionable.
Can I follow up? I guess my question is really more about notification of time frame of work being done and road impacts or property impacts for that work.
They don't typically give notice. What they'll end up doing is they'll send in road or excavation permits, and that process, because they have outside contractors often, is one of, it's hard to nail them down in terms of their timing. Oftentimes they'll come in and they'll do multiple polls in groups and things like that. But they typically don't do notifications associated with work coming out. And I know I believe you experienced something like this recently. It has not been their practice in the past.
Is there, I guess, and my final question, is there a grievance process for residents who are negatively impacted with Eversource or with the city? Is there a process that residents should follow? I just want to make sure everyone is aware of who to contact if you have a problem.
I mean, you can reach out to Eversource directly. Unfortunately, they're a very large organization, and they seem to quickly silo complaints into certain areas. However, we do have clients' support, so reaching out to the city is probably the best avenue if they're dissatisfied with something going on, and we can reach out to our client support person to get something resolved if there is a challenge.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.
And then it looks like a lot of these polls, and this is just for so they're all in the packet. A lot of these poles are being moved or replaced. With replacing a pole, state law now requires them to take down the old pole, which used to not be the law of the land. And so if you notice this coming in your neighborhood, please reach out to the city, to the council, and we'll work through Eversource if there's a issue. But a lot of these poles look as though they are required in terms of they're already in the relative location, and so as they're being replaced, they will be installed, and that's a part of the installation, is that they have to, I understand, come back if they're going to touch the pole, even to put it in the same place, to request this permission. But with the consent agenda on the table, all in favor? Aye.
Any opposed? Good question, Councilor Cook, on that. We have had one presentation. Now we have, on the audit, we have email correspondence.
Move to accept and place on file.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, a letter from Julian Eicher of the Lafayette Trail requesting permission to donate and install an official Lafayette Trail Revolutionary War sign at the Plains.
Your Honor, I move to refer to the city manager with authority to act.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Moreau.
I think this is a great idea, and I was excited to read about it.
Yeah, it's a super exciting. Yeah, it'd be great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A letter from Attorney Derek Durbin requesting the City Council authorize the city manager to execute an easement deed for 4 Sagamore Road in substantially similar form to the draft easement deed.
Your Honor, I move to refer to the legal department for a report back.
Second?
Any discussion?
Look forward to report back.
Councilor Moreau.
Yeah. Just, this would normally come to you from planning board, but because it's not in our city, that's why it's coming this route. And I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The property where the actual building is happening is in Rye, but they're getting water service across the town
Got it.
line
Okay.
into our
All right.
city.
So that's illegal.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but we need the easement to go onto their property in Rye to be able to check for leaks and whatnot. So, yeah.
There. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On to the council agenda. Now, this is exciting as it gets. This is the Ethics Committee.
For the last 4 years, I'd just like to put out that the only 2 people that have been chosen, one now is no longer here. So if I only see my name in there, I'm going to be upset.
I would love to poll. This is exciting as it gets.
Maybe you'll be a Dickie.
Let's see.
Not me, not me, not me.
Oh, these are just the council.
Okay, so we have one.
Not that one.
We have one.
And out.
Is it
Oh, no. Is it Council
you?
It's Councilor Moreau.
More than my name in there.
We're gonna go to Vegas together.
Josh Dent and I have been the only people selected for this committee for 5 years.
Sometimes it really does feel like Park and Rec in here.
Just one. Okay, so I trust Kelly, but for those at home that want that, we have.
I want to recount.
Councilor Hopkins. We have. Let's see. Yeah. Councilor Flynn. Yeah. They're all.
Side of the room seems to be singled out.
I'm gonna do one more just to make sure. Yeah. Councilor Tabor. Yeah. So Councilor Moreau. You just are.
Seriously.
You know, you're
Very lucky.
I'm not lucky. I'm only lucky if you guys are all ethical.
That's right.
All right, I just had to put up, yeah, thanks.
Hilarious.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing to be honest.
Swear he can see names, so we need to go play the
Yeah, the reverse lottery. So we have a list. I will read through them. I appreciate trying to make this as to get everybody at least ones that they listed here and balancing time. I will read out our assignments. Myself, I will serve on the legislative subcommittee. There's a role on the EDC as an ex officio. For myself, there's Rockingham County Planning, and then given the big departure in terms of both Councilor Lombardi and Councilor Denton, I'm taking on the veterans organizations, and we'll have Joanna Deemer, my assistant in the city manager's office, work to coordinate on that and be a connection point with those organizations, certainly leaning on the works of the Elks, VFW, Legion, and all others serving our veterans. The assistant mayor is on the African Burying Grounds Preservation Committee, the Legislative Subcommittee, and the Trees and Public Greenery Committee. Councilor Cook, a total of 6, the most. Arts and Cultural Commission, Chamber of Commerce, the HDC, the Legislative Subcommittee, Municipal Building, Blue Ribbon Committee, and Public Art Review Committee. We have Councilor Tabor on the Fee Schedule Study Committee, the Energy Advisory Committee, the Municipal Building Blue Ribbon Committee, the Public Access Financial Advisory Committee. Next, Councilor Blaylock, the Citywide Neighborhood Blue Ribbon Committee, the Economic Development Commission, the Rec Board, the Safe Water Advisory Group Blue Ribbon Committee, and the Sister Cities Blue Ribbon Committee. Next is Councilor Andrew Bagley on the Audit Committee, the Fee Schedule Committee, the Municipal Building Blue Ribbon Committee, and the Pease Development Authority. And then Councilor Moreau on the Audit Committee, the Fee Schedule Committee, the Planning Board, and the Rockingham County Planning Commission.
And ethics.
What's that?
And ethics.
And now ethics. Yeah. Councilor Flynn, there's a slight change in that Sister Cities only has one, so I'm going to ask you on the spot to switch over to the Safe Water Advisory Committee that has two, but the Audit Committee, the EDC, and the Legislative Subcommittee, as well as the Safe Water Advisory Committee, and then Councilor Hopkins on Parking and Traffic Safety Committee and the Sustainability Committee. So with that, we also have the Housing Committee that we will reappoint, and I know that that is, we had some discussion internally, or not internally, but as a group at a retreat on that. Some concerns on making this competing with the master plan, but there's still a lot of work to do on zoning. Going to put form that committee, put applications out, and we'll announce that committee at the next council meeting, the members on that. So with that, I appreciate everybody's work and continued work on this. We now are on to the approval of the City Council rules and orders. And where is? They're in my packet. All right. Any discussion? I know that there was one change to Roman numerals.
That's right. Your Honor, if I could bring up, I'm not a counselor, but I'm going to see if you would entertain a consideration to amend Rule 7, Order of Business, to no longer require or, in effect, eliminate the use of the Roman numeral system in an attempt to improve accessibility. What we're trying to do is bring the agenda setting process into a new software program, and to have to program it with Roman numerals is really messing up the system. So for that reason, and for just to improve accessibility for all who may not know Roman numerals as well as we do, or appreciate them, really.
I make them up all the time.
Your Honor, I would make a motion to eliminate Roman numerals from the order of business under Rule 7 for the City Council rules.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Blaylock?
I'm always in favor of efficiency.
Yeah, I think, and so for folks looking at home, or if you come now, we've changed slightly the agenda. Hopefully, it will be easier to read once you're not used to reading it, as I am every time. So it's a little tough for me, but for first time when you're reading it, it's certainly easier to follow. It's easier to craft, and hopefully it will be easier to update. So certainly support moving away from Roman numerals and to to just a numbered system. We do need a vote. No other discussion. Councilor Bagley?
I guess maybe this would be a good time to bring this up. The number 2, public dialogue session, every other meeting. I don't think we've ever had one of those unless I don't really understand what it is exactly.
Oh, that's on the whole.
We haven't done one since COVID, I think.
Yeah.
Should we strike that from the list?
I think we need
Or can I make a motion to strike Rule 2 and reorder as appropriate?
It's not Rule 2. It's Roman numeral 2 under Rule 7.
Oh, yes.
Get that right.
All right, I would move to.
Well, Councilor or Assistant Mayor?
I mean, I would actually say, as someone who participated back in the day of some public dialogue sessions. They were nice. I understand that some of the difficulty of them was the tracking of the notes, the minutes from different table to table of council to council. I still would think that I would like to just keep them on here, 'cause especially where it says when applicable. You know, in case we, you know, ever want them in the future, or as we're going into the master plan, or want to be able to have a, you know, more casual kind of dialogue with the public before some of the meetings. I would just think that we can keep them, especially where it says when applicable.
Councilor Cook?
We have had public dialogue as a council since COVID, but we had it around the budget process. And what we did is we divided up the council so that we had different budget sessions and discussions. And I think that we had some discussion around this in the governance committee in 2022 about whether or not we should continue the process, and we discussed maybe finding different formats for it and finding spaces when it's applicable. While we haven't used it in a while, I could see the public dialogue process maybe being used during the master planning process for the council to take input. It's an opportunity to have small group discussion and potentially doing that without having quorum, so that council members can take in input from various individuals through the city.
An easier note.
And it's an easier way, because then you don't have to, if you don't have a quorum of the council and you don't have everybody in the same meeting, then you don't have to take notes or minutes from that meeting. You just try to take notes and report back. And so I think that's how we've done it in the past. At least that's been the new process, and it might be useful.
Maybe if you were to strike the language, every other regularly scheduled meeting, and just leave when applicable.
Seems like a good compromise. All right. Thanks, Councilor Bagley. That means we don't have to print it and have people question what it is and what we're not doing.
Do you need a motion to strike that language?
We do, yep. So first, let's take the motion on the floor to remove Roman numerals. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Another motion on when applicable.
Your Honor, I move to strike the words
Every other regularly scheduled meeting.
every other regularly scheduled meeting from
Second.
Rule 7, Item 2.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And now you need a motion to approve the rules as amended.
Any other considerations on the rules? It will take a 2/3 majority to change them once we adopt them.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the city council rules as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We've done, we're on to the rules, ratification of city council policies. Moving on to that. Do we list out all of these policies?
They are.
So the ones in, okay, you were gonna,
Those are all the
Starting on page 89.
5 years.
Yeah, it's 89.
so, okay, so
Way back from 2009.
what's the best way for me to do this, Kelly, for me to read them all out and then, or not, we can't possibly vote on each one of them
Right,
individually?
you don't have to, because they're in the packet, so you can just have a motion to approve as presented.
Okay,
As-
I will wait a motion to approve as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on these? Now, we've just, for the folks at home, like, there's been some that we've updated through the year as council, as we've changed ordinances. We will have to change policies at times. Most notably, I think, one of the sidewalk cafes, et cetera. So these are not set in stone. They can be changed, but will require an ordinance, or we'll have to come back to it to do so.
Can I ask a question?
Councilor Morell?
The ones that we've rescinded or repealed, do they eventually drop off this list, or do they stay on this list, repealed
It will say repealed next to it, and they'll be in red.
But it'll stay there. It doesn't really.
Yep, so outdoor dining, loading zones, parking areas, the 2023 policy, that was rescinded on February 21st, 2023, will not be approved going forward for this.
Right, but it never leaves the list, was my question. So
No, our errors remain there in perpetuity.
A study guide remains.
Did that, been there, changed it.
Yeah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we now have with the ratification of Blue Ribbon committees. I will list them and then wait a motion to ratify them as listed. The African Burying Grounds Preservation Committee, the Citywide Neighborhood Committee, the Housing Committee, the Municipal Blue Ribbon Committee, the Safe Water Advisory Group, SWAG, and the Sister Cities Blue Ribbon Committee. I now wait a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Bagley.
Am I misremembering this, or is this something we weren't doing? Were we talking about making Safe Water Advisory Group a standing committee, or am I misremembering that?
Sustainability, we just did.
We were talking about, we had made sustainability. We have a conversation about making Sister Cities a standing committee. We do not yet have a conversation on the SWAG to become a standing committee, and I can't remember if that was in the report. No, the report asked us to reappoint. I'm sure the member would not be opposed to us making it a standing committee, but it's not a standing committee at the moment.
Okay, that's my misremembering.
No, and even the sister cities, we do have a motion or a further discussion to make that a standing committee, but it will be reappointed before it is such. So we have the motion. It was second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And now we have the reappointment of City Manager Conard to the Pease Development Authority.
Your Honor, I move to reappoint City Manager Kennard to the Pease Development Authority.
Second.
Just a few words on this. Pease, incredibly important to the work that we do in Portsmouth. Having the alignment of our city manager and the work that the city of Portsmouth does has proved incredibly valuable over the last, I think it's been 3 years, so not 2 years, but 3 years. And so wholeheartedly support City Manager Kennard's reappointment to this important position, especially as those that would like to see the demise of the Pease Development Authority. Competent, excellent leadership is certainly a buttress against calls from the state to do away with the local control that we have there. So hope the city manager will continue to do the work on behalf of Portsmouth that she has done for the last 3 years.
Your Honor, I just want to say that I was able to tour the PDA, and it was so impressive. And as a lifelong resident, I was just really blown away by the work they're doing, the team they have over there, and I really appreciate the city manager making that connection for me.
Great.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a number of reappointments, appointments to be considered. Can't do anything more than considered. And then for folks following along at home, we consider appointments, and then in 2 weeks, we will vote on the appointments. There's a number that come up here. There are a number more that we will have at the next meeting, but I would like you to consider, or I'd ask that you consider the reappointment of Jeffrey Cooper to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the appointment of Demi Dubois to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the reappointment of Eli Kaner to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the appointment of Hope Anderson Puzo to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the appointment of Margarita Giacobi as an alternate to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the appointment of Joshua Sear to the Economic Development Commission, the appointment of Jason Goodrich as an alternate to the Economic Development Commission, appointment of Amy Dutton to the Cemetery Committee, the appointment of Jennifer Merriman to the Cemetery Committee, the appointment of Susan Sterry to the Municipal Building Blue Ribbon Committee, and the resignation of, what's that?
That's separate.
Oh, sorry, yep, we need to, I would ask that you consider those, because this one is not, you can't consider it, she's already resigned. And to look through, reach out to the applicants whose applications are in your packet, and certainly reach out to me if there's any questions on any of the applicants. Now, we have, regrettably, the resignation of Cassandra Lund from the Arts and Cultural Commission, a great member, and wish her well.
Your Honor, I move to accept with regret the resignation of Cassandra Lund from the Arts and Cultural Commission and to send a letter thanking Cassandra for her service to the city.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's see, I was looking for the document that had all of our conversations and the work output of the, and I can't find it at the moment, so I'm going to wing it in terms of the retreat. Was lucky enough to have everybody come for a Saturday. This was an open public meeting, so anybody in the public could have attended as well. But the goal was to understand the priorities of the council working within groups for the next 2 years. I will say that Deputy City Manager Carl Weber did a fantastic job in terms of delivering an efficient, it's tough to say, like an efficient, was it 4 hours, 5 hours? It seemed like it went by a lot faster than it did. It was a good way, Councilor Monroe was right, 5 hours. These will be incorporated and presented as a part of our budget book, the priorities that we've come up with, but it was a good use of time, and I look forward to delivering the final finished product on that to the council as well as to the public as a part of the budget process, which we will align everything that we do to the priorities that we have. And they are rather than large-scale departures, they are in some ways a reaffirmation of some of the goals, reprioritization of other goals, and inclusion of strategic goals aligned to those those priorities with timelines to deliver a work product back to the city of Portsmouth. So look forward to that and appreciate everybody carving out a Saturday to do so, and again for the staff that was able to join us as a part of that conversation. All right, that is as long as hopefully I ever have to talk in any one of these. Yeah, I know, Assistant Mayor. I mean, as long as I'm ever scheduled to, I sometimes will talk, but this was a lot of scheduled talking that I hope to avoid in the future. All right, on to the city council members, starting with Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. You'll see in your packet a recommendation coming forward from the Public Art Review Committee for a temporary art display. It's actually a pride mural that was painted by residents of the city, ages 5 to 80, a design from one of our other residents, Joanne Coles, and supervised by Richard Haynes, who is a very well-known Portsmouth artist. And this was completed last year for Pride. They're hoping to display it temporarily and have already been working with the rec department on a location leading up to Pride in June of 2026. So I would move to approve the recommendation of the Public Art Review Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Councilor Blaylock?
I think this is awesome. I love that we incorporated the youth and actually, making the art. We got, town full of artists. But no, I love it.
And those, Richard Haynes is fantastic, is very generous with his time throughout the community, and a very special individual, right here in Portsmouth. So appreciate the lending hand that he gave, and look forward to seeing this displayed in a place of prominence. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you can see, I'll just make the motion. I'll move to schedule first reading of draft of the Sister City Committee ordinance at the February 2nd, 2026 City Council meeting. And if I second, I will
Second.
Discuss. Thank you. So the Sister City Committee, we revitalized it again last term. It existed under when my father was mayor. I think Assistant Mayor Splain was on it. I know there was, going way back, a lot of it was written for the ambassador of the city. I think more towards Eileen Foley when she was mayor. But we have these amazing relationships with Nichinan specifically and Sant'Angelo. We have families that moved from Sant'Angelo to Portsmouth. We prevented World War Z by hosting Nichinan to sign the Treaty of Portsmouth and prevent the war with Russia, the 1905 peace treaty. Those are very unique, I think, to Portsmouth. And I think we should have a sister city program that can honor that by permanence. Those two cities especially. We also have our friendship city, England, Portsmouth, England. We have one in Russia. We have several others. They put such a significant effort in welcoming us whenever we visit Nichinan or visit Sant'Angelo. They really roll the red carpet out. They really honor us and welcome us truly. We want to be able to reciprocate that. So we think having this committee will allow us to do that. The committee is a lighter lift. We're also trying to set it up so donations can be made, and we don't have to use taxpayer funds to welcome these guests, to our friends, to give them gifts, if we wanted to, from the mayor's office or something. But this would give us a permanent kind of sister city to be hosts, to be that honorable friend, to sustain these relationships, to sustain the connections, give our students some life-changing understanding of what it means to be a global citizen, and deserve the continuity of a permanent committee, and just demonstrate what it means to be the city of the open door with people-to-people diplomacy that extends for decades into the future.
Thank you, Council Blaylock. Agree. If there's no other comments, I would say that the reason why we would change something from a Blue Ribbon Committee to a permanent committee is, as you mentioned, the continuity. To be able to deliver something that outlasts any one council, we would hopefully stagger the terms so that it would exist beyond the council, and it would give the ability to make sure that we continue on those conversations regardless of who is the mayor of the council at the time to deem, if this is something, worth. It also prioritizes those outside of a council. And so in terms of the renewed focus on the sister cities around the 400th, which was an awesome opportunity with the celebration that we had with the Nichinan folks and members of their delegation celebrating the 120th, which in Japan signals 2 life cycles. It's an important time to take the momentum that the Sister Cities Committee Blue Ribbon Committee has had and create a permanent way that community members can be rest assured that will continue on, because those conversations, if led to wither, for a council or two, run the risk of, really taking back all of the work that has gone into it. So I think it's a great time to underscore that and redouble the effort of which was envisioned by Mayor Foley long ago, right over our shoulder, to make sure that this is not lost again, and that we continue the effort, especially now in a time when diplomatic relations seem to be strained, and the only thing that will bring people together is people, not government. So thank you, Council Blaylock, for bringing this forward. And the only question I ask is whether or not it's ready to come back if it's in draft form for the first reading February 2nd. I would look to legal to see if that's enough time, and if it is, then great, and if not, would work on that. But that's the only question I'd have.
My understanding is that the committee wants to review this proposed draft and then request any amendments prior to first reading.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that would be ideal. We did have a meeting on Thursday, not to meet before you reinstated the Blue Committee, yeah, it would be. We did have some suggestions, and it probably would, if it's going to be permanent, it would be a good idea to, dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Since the committee is going to discuss this again, one of the suggestions that I would make is that maybe we include somebody from either the school board or from the schools, since we do so much, the Sister Cities does so much with the schools.
Yeah.
Or include somebody that's affiliated with the schools. I guess it doesn't have, the committee could decide how they wanted to do that, but I think it would be nice to have that input.
So yeah, it did, and that did come up, and we currently do have the principal on the committee. The schools have a very good program, and we're trying to, make sure it's bigger than just that schools. That is very strong, and it's really led by teachers at the high school. I don't know if they have the time, to attend these meetings and stuff. So we do communicate with them, but I don't need if we need to make that a requirement, because then it might, if we get too big of a committee, then it'll be hard for us to meet. You know what I mean? Because we need to have a quorum and everything.
It could be something that,
But
like
it's
an
something-
ex officio,
Yep.
where there's the option
That'd be a
to
great idea.
join
Yep.
on there, to deliver some of that information. But the quorums are always, when you create a committee, quorums can be certainly difficult to wrestle with. So appreciate the work that's going into this. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Staying with Councilor Blaylock.
All right, my next item, I guess do you guys want me to make a motion first, or discuss this first?
It's always easy to have a motion on the table, but maybe to refine the motion, or to put a motion, it's to put a motion, and then if
We can
there's-
amend it, and, all right, I'll move to request a report back from Planning and Sustainability staff on how to remove new construction from the Historic District's purview. If I have a second, I will discuss.
Second for discussion?
Thank you. And I would be open to, really my intent on asking for this report back is to really ask about the impacts and costs of even keeping new construction in their purview, and the benefits of removing it. We want to look at the average time it costs for an applicant to go through that process, so we can idea what kind of costs are being imposed on them. Possibly how many lots in the historic district would be even applicable to new construction. But I'm going to kind of start, so on the HDC, each project will be deemed new construction, demolition, renovation, or addition, right? So I'm only talking about new construction. I believe a demolition, renovation, or addition involves a historic building. I think that should remain under the historic district's purview. I think our historic buildings are one of the strongest assets we have, besides our people. But I don't want to touch that. I think that's very important. So I want to respect and preserve the historic buildings. But I think one should be able to tell what is historic and what isn't. My last 4 years on the Historic District Commission, it was an absolute honor to serve with Commissioner Reagan Ruge, and I learned a lot. At the beginning, I asked, why is new construction under the HDC's purview? And we had a lot of projects. We had the Sheraton parking lot. We had all that development down there. None of it involved any demolition. It didn't involve any renovation. It didn't involve any addition. It was purely new construction. And I, during the process, realized that we were designing it, and that didn't feel right to me. So I met with a couple of the members of our community that do build. And the first thing they said to me is new construction should not be under the HDC's purview. For one, it adds this 6 to 9 month design process to them that has a lot of unknowns. They have no idea how the commission will act. They have no idea what requests will be made. So in order to cover that 6 to 9 month process, these community members have to build luxury condos, because that's the only way they can cover their costs of the 6 to 9 month process that we impose. So they have to go 0 degree fridges. They have to go quartz countertops. They are no longer looking at, building rentals. They're no longer building, and so this whole idea is coming out of affordability, trying to help our housing issue, right? It seems like right now, when we put new construction through the Historic District Commission, all we're resulting is luxury condos because we're adding a cost. And then I also believe that these new construction shouldn't look like they were historic. I understand respecting the fabric of the district, but it's almost, you know, the average visitor to Portsmouth should be able to tell what's historic building and what's not. And we do have some that are kind of fake history. We have some buildings that were just built to make it look like it belonged with the building next to it that was built 400 years ago or 200 years ago. But really that building was built, you know, last year. And it'll never be historic because it doesn't represent the materials of the time. It doesn't represent the economic, you know, status of the time. It doesn't really, it's kind of a fake history. So my intention with this all is really to improve the affordability. And you know, when I have a community member that builds housing and he's telling me that our process prevented him from building rental units, and he had to build luxury condos to get through our process, I was like, I think we need to start this conversation. So I would at least like to know this stuff from staff, you know, just the benefits and costs and everything, but I'd also like to hear from the planning board. I'd like to hear from the Historic District Commission. I want everyone included in this conversation, but this is the start.
Thank you, Council Blaylock. I see the Assistant Mayor has her hand up. And
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you, Councilor Blaylock, for bringing this forward for discussion. I do appreciate that, you know, you just said, and maybe it should be an amendment in the motion to also hear back from the Planning Board and the HDC. You know, one of the big things I also would like to hear from is from some of these former applicants or housing supply developers. And one of the things I'm really interested in, this is something we also touched on in our housing committee when we talked about what is preventing. And one of the conversations that we've had several times over, and I think we had it in land use a while ago, is to see examples of performas that analyze what a reduction in cost would be and what that trickle-down effect would be. So, you know, one of the conversations is this is a $10 million project, $20 million project, and there is an associated cost with the perception of going through HDC that could be $150,000 to $250,000. Well, if that fee or expenditure is removed, what does that do to the cost of the unit? And where do we actually see the trickle down, if there is any, and where is the guarantee that this goes, I think, for me at least, larger than just the HDC as we talk about streamlining things through planning board and efficiencies. Where is the guarantee that those efficiencies are passed down to the consumer? I think that is one of the struggles I've had in all of these processes when we've discussed removing certain barriers or perception of barriers, when we've talked about streamlining services, when we talked about certain things. You know, I have heard, and Councilor Tabor and I sat and talked to a developer, several developers, and the number one thing that we heard that could drive affordability, or that is the barrier towards affordability, is more so the cost of land. And the cost of general development. And so while I do support figuring out a balance with some of these undeveloped lots, I just want to make sure, you know, if we're doing it for affordability's sake, that there are hard numbers that support that, and then that there's commitment from, you know, developers, and there's actual data and performas that support a reduction of any cost incurred and how that trickles down. I think that's really where I get caught up, is that until I see those numbers, it's a great idea that this could reduce costs and could reduce and then trickle down economics. But there's no promise and guarantee that that is actually going to happen, and that's where I really struggle to support, as I have in the housing committee, in the land use processes, some of the removal of things without a data driven to back it up. So I think if we can get some data from some of these developers, that would be really interesting. And I also would have a question from legal, not to be answered tonight, that if doing this would create some type of version of spot zoning for because it would be only specifically adjusted to undeveloped lots and not remodeled or, tear down X, Y, and Z lots. So I would ask that in that report back, that is looked at, because that is where I have a lot of questions, especially as I think of some of the limited lots. One that really comes to my mind is the McIntyre.
But that would be an addition, because there's a building there.
Well, no, the acre and a half behind it that is
So if it was a
parking
different
garage.
lot, if it's the same lot, it's an addition. If it's a different lot, it's a separate lot. So
Okay.
it's still the same lot, so that would be an addition.
Okay,
For
so-
example, Gillies was an addition.
Yep.
For example, the Citizens Bank was an addition, a
Okay.
renovation addition.
then-
So those aren't new construction.
Okay, so then I would think that
Yeah.
I would ask within that staff clarify certain, I know you're asking for that, so you
Yeah, yeah,
covered that.
yeah, yeah.
I just, for me, I would just look for really good clarification of, because I would view that as new, like, those are gonna be new buildings that are built on those spaces. They're not renovations to the existing building. So what is the definition of, are we saying just lots? Are we saying permits? So this is where I think it can pile on, and where I think staff clarification, built zoning clarification, as you've asked for, is really gonna help define kind of what solution we're going towards.
Thank you, Sister Mayor. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Wanted to thank Councilor Blaylock for spending the last 4 years working so hard on the Historic District Commission. I know that's a lot of work, and going to try to fill that role for the next few years. I also would commend Councilor Blaylock for concerns around affordability. I have a lot of concerns myself in the city about losing naturally occurring affordable housing, which we're seeing loss of towards Islington Creek, where we're seeing basically demolition and rebuild, and we're losing essentially affordable rentals in the city, which, I think is a major concern. That said, I think this motion needs maybe even more clarification. Margot Doring asked some, I think, really important questions around this. Like who is going to review design standards in the urban core if the Historic District Commission doesn't for new builds? And so it's one thing to say, well, we don't need any design guidelines at all. But when I think about the lots that are left, and there are very, very few lots that are left that are not built, we're talking about lots that are on State Street, the majority of which are on State Street, and a lot on Middle Street. So you think the Masonic Temple lot on Middle Street, the lot that sits next to South Church on State Street. There are 2 other bank lots that sit on State Street. And if we're not counting the McIntyre, because the back of it would be an addition, then we're not talking about a lot of lots that don't have any construction on it. And all of those lots are right in the center of the city and the urban core. So who does design guidelines and does review for design guidelines if the Historic District Commission doesn't? And so I think that we have to be really careful about asking to make a major change unless we know what the impact would be from not having anyone in place to do that work any further.
Thank you, Councilor Cook. Councilor Tabor.
I think if we're looking at ways that we can make it easier for housing to get built, that's great. But the historic district is the core of the city, and I'm a believer that the HDC has proved its value, and in fact, it's added value. And I think a great example is the building that replaced Eagle Photo, which is where Popovers is now. That's a building that replaced one-story ugly building. And Steve McHenry was the architect who said, it's the most deferential building I ever designed. The roof line matches the North Church, the facade fits into Congress Street, and then actually enhanced Market Square. I think if we take this argument that there should be no purview over new construction, that could have been a flat-roofed apartment building. with balconies. That's the most profitable thing that could have been built. My concern is, like Councilor Cook, if there's no design purview over sections of the city that are circa 1840, 1850, 1820, that we're going to end up with a downtown, changes to the downtown we're not going to like. Now, if there's a way, and Assistant Mayor's right, we've heard from the folks who build housing that 6 to 9 months and uncertainty in the design process is an impediment to them. So if out of this we come up with data on how long it typically takes for a project in the HDC versus non-HDC, I think that's valuable, and we could look at ways that we can streamline it. But I would give the counter argument to what happens with no purview at all by the HDC.
Thank you, Councilor Tabor. Councilor Bagley, and then Councilor Morrow.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I support, looking at the HDC boundaries and looking at the rules of the HDC, because I think in some cases they may be a bit prohibiting. I'd be very against changing the district by parcel type. I feel like this would penalize the small homeowner who maintains to the HDC standards and profits developers of new buildings in that district by not holding them to the same rules that we hold our residents to. So I'd be against splitting the baby, so to speak, between new and old, but I would not be against looking at the rules as a whole and making sure that we're not adding expense where we don't need to.
Thank you, Councilor Bagley. Councilor Morrow.
So I have a lot of thoughts around this.
None of those thoughts were spoken before.
Most have not. I'm glad it's going to apply to vacant land. I think on some cases, if it's a large lot, then we have to add that you can't subdivide that land just to get out of it, that sort of thing. So I think we have to look hard at those kind of aspects. I think we definitely need feedback from both the HDC and the planning board, so I'm in agreement with that. But I think one of the bigger things is that maybe we flip this a little bit, and instead of taking out of purview, why don't we also ask about the cost of what it would be to have pre-approved plans and pre-approved lists of actual materials and things that the HDC would actually pre-approve, so somebody would actually know up front when they're designing their building, one of these X, Y, Z, and maybe that's going to cost too much money to make it prohibitive, but it would be nice to know those options as far as some sort of pre-approved things for strictly vacant lots, and some of that would have to be around size and whatnot. But I think if we start to look at pre-approved materials and plans, that helps with some of the other concerns that some of the people have talked about. So I'd like a report back on costs on both ways. Would it save us money in the long run? How much would it cost up front to do it? On top of, will even trying this actually save any money and be passed on to the consumer? Because as the assistant mayor stated, I have doubts about that. I made it short.
That was probably one of the best comments, I thought, if I'm ranking them. And we have Reagan here, chair of the HDC. I don't know if she would like to make any comments.
I think we have to suspend the rules.
We would have to. Just make a few. And I've had many conversations. I walk right past Jim Solms' house, architect in the city, and the thing that he's mentioned to me on, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of school here, Jim, the number of times that it seems as though, architects have to do architect things, and we have to set up a way for them to be successful. And I have noticed this, I think no fault of the HDC, but sometimes when especially larger buildings, and if we go back and just think about, the HDC started as preservation of existing and then expanded into, how do we preserve, the guidelines and standards, and it grew as most things in government do grow. When it comes to larger builds, and I think we've seen a lot of this happen on the north end, especially in terms of it became almost a design by committee where we have all agreed, I think most people agree we want the same kind of standards. We don't necessarily want the same build, but we want to hold the standard of the district up to a level where we're not saying it has to look exactly the same, but it has to be of the same standard, knowing that costs, are always cut, in terms of developing for lower costs than otherwise would. I think a lot of people recognize that the HDC is valuable because of the materials and the focus on detail there. If there was a way to get this motion, which, it could certainly stand on its own in terms of new construction, but to really recognize the design guidelines that I think are outside of the purview of any volunteer committee when it gets to be a large enough building that tends to come back and have multiple iterations where the public is involved, and this is a way to keep the public involved. But if there were clear guidelines, as was done with the ADU, which took an enormous amount of time and effort, but especially on new construction that would come along, or even existing demolition and change of that resulted in 10,000 square foot or above, where there could be guidelines. I would hope that the HDC would be amenable to looking at that in a way that could create more of a guideline for the architectural aspects to happen in the confines of what we agree on, and put more of a standard instead of the final design, because it gets because ultimately I think that's robbing us of some truly historic things that in another 100 years we would look back and said that met the moment, and not just the design criteria. Because I think at times we can get things that have approved all of the design and not the spirit that we want to continue to promote here, as Councilor Moreau said, in much fewer words than me typically do. And it's not a recommendation for the motion, but I think maybe more if we could get towards maybe a request to report back from planning, sustainability staff, HCC and planning on how to, something along the lines, and Councilor Moreau is really great at doing these on the fly, but how to, I don't know, streamline or create more. It's not necessarily.
Let me try a shot at it. Because I was trying to write different ones, and so bear with me, Kevin. Request a report back from planning and sustainability staff on the impacts and costs of keeping new construction in the HGC purview, benefits of removing or possible design guidelines, or no, that's not what we already have, possible pre-approved, I don't know how to word the end there.
Councilor Cook, do you have
The
a way to
recommendations?
square the circle?
I think so.
Sorry.
And see if this captures the intent, because I'm trying to not provide any judgment
Yeah.
of what we get. So request a report back from planning, sustainability, planning and sustainability staff, the HDC, and the planning board on the costs, impacts and costs associated with review of new construction from the Historic District Commission, and any recommendation to improve review efficiency. And so whatever the recommendation.
I think that suffices, yeah. Thank you.
Great. Kelly, did you get that? As a friendly amendment? She's gonna make that all sound great.
I don't know what we do with
Councilor
those.
Bagley?
I apologize, thank you, Your Honor, if I'm not up to speed on this, but didn't we approve monies in the last CIP to further develop the HDC mission plan? And is that completed?
Why don't we suspend the rules and ask the chair?
I'd make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second?
Second.
Chair Rudig?
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Ready for the vote. Make sure that everybody wants me up here. Hi, I'm Reagan Rudig. I'm the chair of the HDC. I live at 70 Highland Street. Just here to listen in on the conversation. I agree with a lot of what Councilor Blaylock has proposed, and further for discussion. Yes, I was thinking of a couple different points that I would love to make right now. One is that, yes, we have money that was approved to essentially add another chapter or two to our design guidelines that would, could cover a number of things, most importantly, sustainability and environmental resiliency. But we also are waiting to hear back from our grant application for our CLG grant to the state. And that was two components of that. One was for survey to understand the buildings along Islington Street and their history better. But the other component was for training, to actually get professional training to come and train the HTC and whoever else on the planning board or council or even members of the public who would like to attend that. And I think there is the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions that offers these trainings. And there's a whole list of topics that we can choose from that we would like to be trained on. One of them is review of new construction, because it is one of our most challenging applications. Yes, we don't want fake old buildings, most of us. I don't want to see a fake old building. I want to see buildings that represent our time period, because that's how historic buildings were built. However, making sure that that building is contextual and fits into its context so it's not a blight, and making sure that it is high enough quality to honor its context and the historic district is really important. And that's one of the things that we are tasked to do in the Historic District Commission, is to protect the integrity, protect property values, and to essentially just to really, and protect that integrity and make sure that nothing is damaging to the history of our district. So there are a lot of things coming up within this year that I would really like to actually move on. We've been waiting for a couple years just for the sort of the okay to move forward and rehire the same consultant that created our guidelines to provide those additional chapters. And I don't know why the state is taking so long to return our grant request, but I'm pretty confident in it. So I'm really looking forward to actually having some good training this year and maybe answering some of these questions, figuring out how we can streamline our process. We all would love to streamline the process. So so I'm hopeful.
Thank you, Chair. Rudig, are there questions for the Chair, who has graciously shown up at our meeting in addition to the work that you have on the HDC? So I want to thank you for that. Any questions that the council, and I just would have one, as the motion as presented, do you think that aligns with the existing work that you would be doing as a part of this, or in counter to that work?
I think that it would be a part of what we're looking at for training, as well as bigger discussions that I'm hoping we can have during the master plan process. Looking at our boundaries, looking at areas that maybe don't belong in the historic district, maybe areas that do, like Councilor Bagley said, having that broader discussion before, just kind of punching in here and there.
Okay. Councilor Bagley.
I guess to the chair's comments about the master plan and the HDC as a whole, I feel like having this separate motion maybe confuses their work and makes it harder, not easier, but maybe I'm misunderstanding the intent of the motion.
Well, you could take it either way, I suppose. I think putting this motion forward, which is aligned to, looking at the efficiencies, new construction, can stated as a council desire to have this work be shared by the HDC Planning Board and staff. That creates a, a desire of the council to say that we see an area of opportunity that is funded, and that we would like to, make sure that this is not left out of the master plan process. Not that it would be, but that the work is sufficiently complete by the time the master plan, or at least ongoing by the time the master plan is fully underway, to be additive to that process. Or you could say that it's already covered, but I don't think this, I don't know if it's black or white.
Can I have the motion read back? Maybe I'm misremembering it. Or the amended motion.
Kelly, will you please read the amended motion as delivered by Councilor Cook, if you have that? Or Councilor Cook, if you have it handy?
Request a report back from the Planning and Sustainability staff, HDC, and Planning Board on the costs and impacts associated with review of new construction by the Historic District Commission, and any recommendation to improve review efficiency.
Okay, so we've stricken remove from the motion.
Correct, at the time, yep, so it's going to affect everybody. It'll continue to affect everybody equally, but we will know the costs, and we will also have recommendations if it improves that. Councilor Blaylock?
Yeah, and I just the intent of this is to start the conversation, get some more information, get some data, get some numbers. Perhaps we hear from, applicants and stuff, or architects, but just to start the conversation, and then we can be more informed.
Councilor Moreau? Thanks, Councilor Blaylock.
I don't know if this would even fall into what we're talking about, but since I have the opportunity to, in a public meeting, ask Chairman Rudig a question. Years ago, when I first joined the planning board, there was actually a planning board member that sat on the HDC as a conduit between those two boards, and we have not done that since that member actually left. So I was curious, from your point of view, whether or not, especially in situations like this where we're trying to talk between those two boards, as getting feedback, if it would be helpful if we actually tried to find a regular member, although I know it's not an easy task to do, to serve in that position.
It's not, because I know that person has to do double duty and go to a lot of meetings. But I do.
Could have been you, Councilor Moreau. It could have been you.
Not now.
Yes, it would be helpful to have better conversation, but Chair Chelman and I communicate often, especially when there are things like this that come up where our two boards need to communicate. We've already talked about having a joint planning board HDC session as these master plan discussions get rolling, so that we can come together and kind of have work sessions, multiple work sessions, maybe even to kind of talk about what we do and the whole process. Everybody would love for it to be more efficient, honestly. So, and I did want to just throw out one more thing, is that I have a former professor who runs an organization called Place Economics, and they actually do these sort of economic studies, really deep dives into historic communities all over the world, really. They've gone into some major historic cities, but have done and work all over the United States as well in historic districts and stuff. And I'm happy to reach out to him. He could probably provide some a number of documents, resources that we could look at that might be able to help the planning staff to look at this and understand what the actual economics are.
Thank you, Chair Rudig. And again, I think that there's a spirit of collaboration and identification of a problem, and I think that problem is present with most folks, especially around some of the larger projects that are taking on, that it's difficult to do with the process that we have now with coming back and responding to some of the change, and it can feel like it's being designed. It's the process we have. So if there's a way to improve that process, especially going in, and that could help with affordability, or that could help with just
better projects that we end up, excited about, and the HDC can be a part of crafting those guidelines to give better intention to those that are building, that we get a better, result out of it with less time. I think we would all, celebrate that as a win. So looking at this for what it is, the first steps in terms of, the effort that will be ongoing, with your board, with the planning, or with your commission, with the planning board, and then the master plan as these things are coming. And so thank Councilor Blaylock for bringing this up and for the discussion this evening, and again for your time coming in.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion is amended and I'm not going to be able to remember the motion, but I remember the intent, so that's good enough. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next to Councilor Moreau.
Yes, we had talked last term when we had asked staff to report back on the uses or the ability to use 79E in our zoning, and the staff asked us to come back with some more, framework around that. I had at the about similar time had asked one of our fabulous citizens who loves to do a lot of research to dig deeply into 79E and get us some framework to work around, which has been done, and I've passed that along to both legal and to the city manager. And so I'd like to actually have them work to schedule a work session for all of us to get together and to take a deep dive and have a conversation around all the different aspects of 79E and how we can direct staff and give them some framework that they can work with in order to try to move that forward into our zoning and into our formal process.
And that's not in the packet at the moment?
It is not. They're going to provide it before the work session.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
I don't want to overwhelm everyone,
Got it. And is it possible, just on the work session, to be provided on the, can we include it in the work session when it's scheduled on the website to be included for the public to be able to read through as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the packet.
Yep.
On that. Great. All right. No motion, none needed?
No, just a
the
request
most
to
efficient
schedule.
person ever. Thank you, Councilor Moreau.
Working on it.
All right. Approval of grants and donations. The acceptance of donation to the Senior Activity Center Luncheon Fund 13 from Karen Parnes in the amount of $500.
Move to approve and accept donation as presented.
Second that.
And thank you very much, Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Manager's informational items.
Thank you, Aaron. I have 3 quick items to share. First is an update on the 2023 time capsule. You may have noticed when you walked in the council chambers that in the Portsmouth room, for the time being and for quite some time to come, we will leave for all folks to see the work that was done during the 400th celebration of the city, led by former Assistant Mayor Jim Splain and former Mayor Bob Lister, among others. There was a strong education committee present. They worked very hard all year to make sure folks of all ages and walks of life put items of significance in that time capsule. So we'd like to honor their work, and we will create a plaque there, and we will invite folks to come and to visit that. And we won't lose it like we did the last one, which we did eventually find. So sincere gratitude and thanks to Jim Splain and Bob Lister for that effort. Number 2 is a master plan update, apropos of what we were just speaking of. Since the public visioning open house back in September of 2025, our master plan consultant, UTEAL, has worked to synthesize the analysis and engagement into what they're calling their draft vision, values, and goals language. And thanks to our community organizer, Ann Weidman, we have hundreds of informational items, survey results, comments. So with that, there will be, as of tomorrow on the city website, UTEAL's survey findings on, so that folks can read what they've got drafted, confirm what they've heard so far, based on all the public meetings and surveys conducted to date. And we will look forward to greater discussion coming up with future surveys and a large citywide conversation in April to be held at community campus. And the last update is what I typically bring to the board is what happens at the previous Peace Development Authority board meetings. Just some quick highlights. They will publish an annual report in March for both the Peace Development Authority and the Division of Ports and Harbors. In airport news, both Allegiant and Breeze are both doing well. and WMUR ran an interesting piece on the airport snow removal process. And interestingly, since they're an FAA and DoD airport, they have very strict rules about how maintained the runway is. And essentially, if there's an eighth of an inch of snow, they're plowing, and that will take hours. There's 2.8 million square feet of linear apron space and 1.7 million square feet of runway clearance. A lot of work. The men and women out there do a really amazing job. It's a privilege to learn more about what they do. And then at the Division of Ports and Harbors, more than 50% of the total bulk salt to be received has been received. I think there's a big shipped in right now. If not, it just left yesterday. And 1,800 salt trucks loaded out from that site in December alone. So those are some fun facts.
See them every morning. Those guys are waiting.
We don't meet in February, and the March meeting will be after our second March meeting, so I'll provide another update in April.
Can I ask a question? In maintaining all of those, runways and such, do they have a dog on staff?
Do they have a dog? I don't know.
I've recently heard a story about a dog whose sole purpose at a major airport is to chase geese.
Chase the geese.
Off the runway.
And they're good
heard
at
of
it.
that.
I saw that.
They're all at Prescott Park.
Yeah. That's a great question. I'll find out if geese have ever been a problem at this airport. Haven't heard it to date, but.
We hired a dog.
Okay. You can use Peter Rice's dog. There we go.
Anything under miscellaneous? Councilor Morrow?
Just one quick update. I participated last week in a housing panel for the Seacoast Board of Realtors task force that I sit on. We actually had somebody from New Hampshire Housing. We had John and Maggie Randolph and somebody from the New Hampshire Policy Institute. We actually had 50 people attend the meeting and even had a reporter from the New Hampshire Business Review who did a great article on it. So housing is top of the mind, and how to create more affordable housing was really an interest of theirs, and probably try to recreate another one in another year with some different folks. So
Excellent.
it's an update you guys probably didn't know about.
Well, with that, we'd just like to thank and congratulate Councillor Flynn and Councillor Hopkins on their first meeting. And look forward to the next 2 years. I'd wait a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Portsmouth.